Hi, so for my project, I decided to create a device to replicate this RGB color model that you can kind of see here on the screen. Um, and I used the joystick sensor to do this. So I built a pretty simple shell here just to contain all of the elements and make it a little bit easier to use and to look at. So we can see like the three main components here. We have this joystick here. We have a light, which is kind of encased by this parchment box to make the light diffuse a little bit better. And then just a button over here on the side as well. So the main functionality here is you can roll this joystick around to get the full spectrum of the RGB color space. So you can see at the top here, when we have red, we can see that the red light is all the way on, full brightness, and the blue and the green lights are fully off. And the sort of the same with the blue, the red and the green are off here, and the blue is in full brightness here, and with the green as well. And we kind of have these intermediate values as we kind of roll in between. So we can get a purplish color here, kind of a teal, and then we have our yellow and our orange over here as well. And we can also note that in the middle it's white, since as you can kind of see in this diagram, when it's in the middle here, we have all the values are at 255 for the max, which shows up as white. And if you just move a little bit towards any of the colors, you can kind of get a lightened version of them. So just a little bit towards the pink or towards the red, you get a pinkish color. A little bit towards the blue, you can kind of get a teal. There's like a lavender. So you really get the full spectrum. Another thing too, you can sort of dim the light by pressing in on the joystick. So you can kind of click it in, and you'll see the light dim a little bit. Or it gets brighter. I guess it already was dim. But it gets brighter here, so now you can see the full brightness of these colors. And then if you click it again, it goes back to being dim. Which the RGB color model here is actually converted from an HSV, the hue saturation value color model, which is more of a three-dimensional model, similar to RGB though. So what you're actually doing when you press down on this joystick is changing the V value in HSV. So hue and saturation are determined by what you move on the joystick, and value would typically be this range on kind of a three-dimensional scale. But since I only have a binary control for that three-dimensional, I just sort of dim it 50% here. And if we open up the serial monitor as well, we can see that when we press in here, it just gives you a note of the value is dimming, and now the value is at max. So we can see that. And what this button over here on the side does is it can kind of lock the value that you have here. So for example, if I roll to like a pinkish color, and then if you press this button, you can see now it's locked in. I can roll around the joystick and the color doesn't move. It's locked in. And then on the serial monitor, what comes up is the RGB and the HSV values of that current color. So it makes sense in here because since it's kind of this purplish color, we would expect that the red and the blue values are pretty high and the green value is pretty low. And this HSV, the way you kind of read this, this first value is the angle of the joystick. The second, which is the saturation, is the sort of the brightness, which is based on the distance of the joystick from the center. So since it was pretty far over here, it's very nearly 1. And then this last here is the value, which currently the light is in the dimmed position, as we can see up here, if it'll focus. The light is currently dimmed, so that'll be set at 0.4 to make it dim. And then if we just press this button again, it resumes so that you can move the light around as you'd like. And just to kind of demonstrate this again, we can see the value is currently at max. So if we freeze it, for example, just right here on white, we can see the RGB values are what we would expect with the 255, 255, 255, and the HSV, we can see the V here is at 1.0 instead of 0.4 as it was over here. So that's pretty much the extent of my project, is those three main components of adjusting the color here, changing the value by pressing in, this light in the box here, and this button to freeze and unfreeze the light and show the values.